Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again, and as promised, I am doing more reviews on fixed blade knives, something I haven't done a lot of, and I've heard a lot of shit over it, so I definitely wanted to bring out some special ones when I did that. And honestly, few knives evoke such a strong passion, because honestly, over the years, I've become a bit jaded, and it really does take a lot for a knife to make me actually say wow and feel an urgent need to own it. And this is one of those very, very rare cases. What we're looking at here is a Sascha Dunkhorst silenced Tanto, which is based off of his Fusion model, obviously done in a specialized theme. Let's go over the specifications first. We'll talk about the knife, we'll talk about the maker, and what makes this so incredibly special for me. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Silence of the Lambs and the following films, and I love theme knives if they're done properly, if they're not overdone and hokey and ridiculous. And in my opinion, this is clean, classy, and spot on. We'll go ahead and get the sheath out of the way here. What we're looking at is a 9-inch overall length, with 4.5 inches for the high carbon 1095 steel blade, and the thickness, the blade stock, is 156 thousandths. The total thickness, because of the very thick handles here, is about 7/8 of an inch. So you've actually got quite a bit to hold on to here. And you've got a camel bone handle, which is beautifully scrimshawed on both sides, which has a different motif on each handle. And it will feature maroon micarta liners and copper pins holding all that together. Now, the cool thing about Sascha is he is a true handmade custom knife maker. He lives out in Cologne, Germany, and he works with the bare minimum in his shop, yet somehow he turns out these fantastically detailed works of art. You know, he's got nothing more fancy than a grinder, a buffer, drill press, and a whole bunch of files and sandpaper. Yet, by making the knives in this old-fashioned way, you've got a real sense of, I have something special here. And that's not to take away from any makers that work with CNC or even work with a manual mill or any of those other modern conveniences. Everybody has a different level they want to work on. And generally, every step you make is more so about increasing your productivity, your efficiency, and then, of course, your repeatability, your consistency from one knife to the next. But with an old school maker like Sascha, it really is about the purest form of the art of knife making, and this knife exhibits everything that a handmade custom knife really should. It's beautifully balanced, very beautifully well made, and it has a soul to it that a, let's say, full-on 100% CNC made knife won't have. Now, there's nothing wrong with that for a carry knife, something that you're going to EDC and beat up, and there's certain things that a machine can do so much better than a man, and you may want that particular look. I've certainly done that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of guys that do work in that manner, but when it comes down to it, looking at the actual bladesmithing as an art form, this is an exemplary example of what can be done. To add another layer to his work, he's begun working with his wife, Nina. Now, Nina is an artist, and he came up with the idea of adding Scrimshaw work to the handles of his knives, and they kind of teamed up, and she went for it. And even the very first knife that she did, which was the Raven, was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And now coming out here with the Silence, it's really pretty amazing. Now, I really don't know much about the actual process of Scrimshaw. I've never tried it. I've never sat with anybody who did it. But what I've always admired is the dramatic way that you can create images by doing Scrimshaw. It's kind of like fine line pencil drawings. That simplistic black and white nature makes it all seem so much more impactful than a whole bunch of wild, vibrant colors. At least that's just the way that I see it. Now, the one thing I love in particular on this Scrimshaw work, if we can get the camera to focus on it, it's a little bit tricky. There we go. If you look at the skull in the center of the Death's Head hawk moth, which was the logo we'll talk about in a few minutes, you'll notice that she was very true to the proper look of the Death's Head moth from the promotional posters and the original VHS cover from Silence of the Lambs, where the girls kneeling, the naked girls kneeling, are actually what creates the skull. And I'm hoping that the cameras focus well enough on that for you to be able to see it. But if not, you can go back to the beginning of the video where I did the macro photography, and it definitely shows up more there. Now, that whole idea was actually inspired by a photo taken back in the early 1950s, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, but it was called Envoluptas Mors, which was a concept that was conceived by Salvador Dali, and the photograph was shot by Philippe Halsman. And to see that replicated so well here, it's a detail that wasn't really needed to be done. We could have just seen the Death's Head moth and gotten the idea and known what she was going for, but she took the extra time to do that, and I thought that was pretty friggin' cool, and that shows that she is very clearly a fan of the film as well. Then we get over here to the right hand side, and you see the incredible detail work in the Hannibal Lecter face with the skull. I'm sorry, with the mask. All the fine shading, and you look at the wrinkles around the eyes. I mean, it really is exceptionally done. Now, myself being a huge fan of the films, when I saw Sascha put this up on his Instagram, I'm looking at it going, oh man, oh God, I really, 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 really want that. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm not really buying knives, because all my money right now goes back into my own knife making, which is buying belts and steel and carbon fiber and all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, I just don't have the expendable income that I used to. And I'll buy a knife every now and then. And I had inquired when he put it up, because he didn't list the price. He said, you know, DM for the price. And I messaged him, and he came back and told me. I said, oh man, I said, a year ago I would have paid, you know, 3 times that, but I don't know, let me see what I can do. And I ended up not buying it. Then about 2 weeks later, I'm going through my feed again, and I see a couple of really cool fixed blades, and the memory of seeing that knife popped in my head. I went back over to his account, and I checked to see if it had sold yet, and I messaged him. I said, is it still available? And he says, yeah, actually, it really is. I'm surprised. And I said, well, I am too. And as dumb of a thing as it is for me to do, I absolutely have to own this. So I PayPal'd him that night and got it sent over. And I'm extremely happy to own this. There's something that sometimes, every now and then, you'll buy an object, a thing, and it pulls at you on an emotional level. You make a real connection with it beyond just the usefulness of that thing, that widget. And this definitely is that for me. So this is actually a knife that I'm carrying and enjoying. This is not sitting in a display box, as it probably should be when you look at a knife made to this degree of artistry. I wanted to carry it. I wanted to be able to pull this out and hand this to somebody and go, look how fucking cool that is. And for me, that's the joy in knives. It really is. It's owning it. It's carrying it. It's using it if you know the need arises. But actually having it on me. I don't like to just put something in a display case just to look at. There's nothing wrong with the folks that do collect in that manner. I certainly understand it. In many cases, knives are an investment. But for me, the enjoyment comes from using it and carrying it. It's just like all the cars I've owned in my lifetime. I've owned some fairly decent collectors worthy cars, and I've watched people in those circles talk about how they won't drive them in the rain, and they won't do this and they won't do that. I drive all my cars. They're meant to be driven. That's the enjoyment for me. So the same thing really applies to knives. Now, I don't want you to let the incredible Scrimshaw work overshadow the awesome workmanship of the knife. Let me give you some close-ups here and let you see how this knife was actually made. Sascha, who was inspired to make the original model of this, which is the Fusion Tanto, was actually inspired by the legendary works of Bob Lum. Now, anybody that's followed Bob Lum's career and seen the knives that he's made, You can absolutely, I mean, there's no way around it. You can see that he stayed faithful to a lot of Lum's style, but he's made it his own, and that's one of the other things that I really appreciate about this. When you look at the blade, you're looking at high carbon 1095 steel. So yes, it does require a bit more care than something like S35VN. It's not really a big deal. I put a spray of, Aegis Knife Care Solutions EDCI on it. I wipe it down and I'm done. That's it. I don't subscribe to the whole layer it up with oil and leave it caked on there and then every bit of dust and dirt and other shit gets stuck to it. I actually really hate that. If a maker oils up their blade when they send it to me, the first thing I do is I wipe all of it off. I clean it down as best I can, and then I apply the EDCI solution. There's no film, there's no gunk or smell, it's food safe. And I've been doing that for over 4 years now on everything from Damascus to stainless steels, and I've never had anything rust, pit, corrode, or anything, so I'm going to stick with that also for this. I've had a lot of 1095 and W2 blades that have benefited perfectly from that. One of the things I love here is that striking hamon. Take a look at that hamon line, and that's from the differential quenching that he's done on this. The heat treat on this is done obviously by him in-house. He does everything. Another thing that I really liked was all of the little signatures that this is a handmade knife. Throughout the knife, you can see that it's handmade. With some makers, we've discussed before, and some knives, we want and we expect absolute dead-on, flawless perfection, dead-on symmetry, stark, bold lines. But with a 100% handmade piece, you'll always see little glimpses of what made that knife come to life in the maker's hands. And this knife has a couple of unique identifiers that make it all the more special to a collector like me. You take a look here at the plunges. It's not 100% perfectly symmetrical, and that shows the difference in his right hand grinding to his left hand grinding. Totally fine. That's something that you would expect to see in a true, go look at any ABS Mastersmith. Look at their knives. There's going to be these slight little things that you'll see, slight little blemishes in the finish or little tiny things that let you know, hey, yeah, that was all done by hand. He's not grinding on a fixture. He's not letting a machine do any work to any degree. Any discrepancies in the finish, that's because it was all done by hand. And on certain knives, that's exactly what you want to see. And a knife like this, I'm telling you, it's hard for me to just keep repeating myself, but it excites me. Owning this knife makes me want to go out and kidnap a fat girl and throw her into my well. That's the emotion that this knife evokes. No, it doesn't. I'm not going to kidnap anybody. And if I do, I don't have a well. So you're probably just going to get locked in an uncomfortably small bathroom. I'll still provide the lotion. Don't worry about it. But there it is, guys. Take another good look here. You can see the fact that this is true bone, which I find, again, a great tie-in to the theme of the knife, the fact that it's all carved into actual bone. Beautiful carving on there. Great shading, great detail work. There's the copper pins. He's done a nice job shaping and contouring the scales where they're very, very comfortable to handle. And then back here again to Hannibal's face. Exceptional work. I really couldn't be more excited to own this knife. I really couldn't be. I'm a big fan of Sascha's work. I've looked at his work a lot, actually, on Instagram, and never just pulled the trigger like I should have. And now I kind of regret that I've waited as long as I have, but I'm glad that I did it on this particular piece. This is one that I find highly unlikely that I will ever let go. And it's funny because when I got it, I shot a quick text message over to Todd Begg, who, for those of you that don't know, now lives local to me here in Dallas, Texas. And I said, look what I got coming in. I'll bring it by the day that it comes in. And he's like, oh, you fucker. If this ever gets sold to anyone anywhere, I'm pretty sure Todd would kill me if I didn't sell it to him. So at least it'll stay close to the family if anything ever happens. But this is one that I'm going to enjoy carrying for a very, very, very long time and showing to anybody who asks to see it. It's just one of those pieces that you're excited to own, that you know is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is a complete one-off knife. They haven't done anything like this before. They're not going to be doing it again, at least as far as I know. And at least if they do, if somebody says, hey, I really, 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 really want a Silence of the Lambs theme knife, you know, it's probably not going to be these exact same two images. So for me, it's something special because it won't be replicated. It is something that's unique to my collection, and I'm very, very proud to own it, as you can very clearly tell. So if you haven't already, stop the video, go over to Instagram and follow Sascha there. I will put his username down in the description down below because it's much easier for you to copy and paste than for me to try to spell it out for you here audibly. But he's a great guy. He spends all of his social media time on Instagram. He doesn't really have a website built or anything else. So if you want to order a knife from him, all you've got to do is follow his account and then send him a direct message and say, hey, I saw your work. I looked through your pictures and holy shit, these are really cool. What do I have to do to order one? And get on his books and get something made, because I'm going to tell you right now, this is a guy that his name is going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. He's been on my radar now for, geez, probably about 2 years. And now, obviously, making this video, he's going to be on more people's radar. So it's going to be a little bit harder to obtain his work over time as he becomes more and more busy. But do what you can just to get in there and get something, anything. Because if you've never owned a true, full, real, handmade knife, this is one of my best suggestions to you. Anyway, with that, I'm out of here, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be coming at you again with some more videos in the near future.